I mean, and it's not unsurprising. I think there was a Princeton study a few years ago where they studied the polling data on a given bill and then whether or not the bill was likely to pass, given what the population wanted, and found that there's basically statistically zero chance that the desires of the people would influence the outcome of the bill. The likelihood of a bill passing was not reflective whatsoever in whether or not it was massively popular or massively unpopular. And I think that the reason is because of gerrymandering. I think gerrymandering is a smoking gun of voter suppression. When you can choose to ignore the opinions of millions of people simply by drawing the maps in such a way that they are carved out of the process, it creates a system of awful incentives so that the incumbents who are in power know that their only real risk of losing an election is to be primaried from, if you're a Republican, from the far right, or if you're a Democrat, from the far left. And so they have to constantly cater to the 8 to 10% of voters who actually vote in a primary, because by the time the November election comes around, the election is baked. I mean, in 94% of districts in 2024 were not competitive in the general election at the U.S. House level, meaning they weren't within a 5 percentage point margin of victory. So that means that those elections were decided during the primaries, and 94% of Americans don't even really have a say in who determines their government. It's actually even worse in a lot of states where the state legislative boundaries are heavily redistricted or gerrymandered. And in Florida in 2024, we had something like 70% didn't even have a competitor, where the opposite party, let alone, I mean, they may have had an independent, but you wouldn't have had a major party competitor actually file to run against that person. There's actually a surprisingly large percentage of elected seats that go unfilled because nobody even runs. So we have a serious problem in the way that we run elections. And that's why we get the bickering and the infighting and the constant hyperpartisanship and hyperbole. We don't get compromise. We don't get consensus making. We have a broken system for debate and dialogue. And what we need to do, I think, is to look to technology as an end around that awful process to reconnect voters directly with their representatives and cut out all the middlemen and all the BS that stands between us and the people who are meant to pass laws on our behalf.
Thank you so much. I mean, that's really, when you put it that starkly, I think it's going to be absolutely shocking for Americans and non-Americans alike listening to this to really take in how uncompetitive our electoral system is. I mean, there is just not much going on in terms of people being in competitive races. And
absolutely, Gavin. I mean, it's 80% of Americans live in a state where one party runs the governor's mansion, both chambers of the legislature, and has a majority of the seats in the Supreme Court of their state. It's so bad. It's the worst it's ever been. And to suggest that we still have a two-party system, I think, is laughable. People always talk about the problem is a two-party system. We don't actually have a two-party system. For all practical purposes, most Americans live in a one-party system. And they have no opportunity to influence the outcome of that system, which is completely dominated by party insiders.